Hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jackie Fox, and this is probably going to be the last Gumi economics video ever, because at least as far as the global audience concerned, there aren't really any economics to talk about. EoS has been announced, which is end of service for anyone who doesn't know what that means, and that means that the game will be coming to an end in roughly 2 months. This also means that they've discontinued Visior sales, so there's nothing to buy anymore, which is cool. Put a pin in that idea, I'll talk about it later. There's going to be a lot of pins, because I have a lot of unfinished thoughts about this game that I'm going to try to get out in this video. And that's going to be probably bittersweet for everyone watching, not the kind of content that would have been super safe to release while this game was still ongoing. And I do want to say right up front, despite everything I'm going to say in this video, I do plan to play this until the last day. One of the big motivating factors for me, honestly, is Grand Arena. And I'll probably still do videos related to the next 2 Grand Arena events because they're still new, they're still novel, it's still a fun and interesting way of playing the game, and especially if the transition to EoS is handled well, like they just start giving things away. That's my hope. That's my hope. You know, that free O was just the beginning, that, you know, Helena's going to be free and maxed, that they're going to, you know, give us 5x shards on hard quests and all sorts of stuff so we can build all of our other units up before the end of the game. Or maybe even just throw shards at us like crazy so that we can build anything we want. Maybe a bunch of, like, thousands of Transcendent Mind Spheres, thousands of scrolls. God, I need scrolls. Please send me 1,000 scrolls at least. Because I still want to finish some things off before I leave, before it's over. But there's an anticipation to the EoS that made it more bearable to me. And that was the announcement from the Amazon App Store. So, for this game, kind of wild to think about, but over the years, I've picked up 4 separate accounts to play this game on. I still don't have all the characters between them, even though I try to section the elements and characters off so that everybody has an opportunity to pull for basically everything. I try not to skip very much, but there hasn't been enough free Visior even across 4 accounts for me to get everything. Another reason that I'm hoping that they're just going to be really generous. I mean, if anything, this is all for good press or something at this point, just for good vibes. You know? There's no money in it for them anymore. They might as well give us everything. They might as well make it totally free. Just allow us to experience that for a little bit. I would appreciate that. But having 4 accounts is difficult. It also means that it takes up a lot of my time in addition to creating content for this game, which is its own time suck. But the issue with having 4 accounts lies in how I access them. Now, technically, I could do all of this from a computer with an emulator, just run like 4 different instances, each one with a separate account, loaded to Google Play Store. I could still do that, even if EoS hadn't happened. I just don't like playing on computer that much. I would rather be able to, like, play from anywhere on my phone. Not have a whole big old thing in my lap. Be able to play even 2 accounts at once. 2 accounts against each other, for which I need multiple devices. So the way that's been easiest for me to juggle this workload is by having 2 phones, each with 2 accounts assigned to them. One of them through the Google Play Store, the other one through the Amazon App Store. If you've been following the news, you probably see the snafu there. Because of that, going to be in the uncomfortable situation to try to decide which 2 accounts, all of which I have like positive, strong memories to, all of which I have the feeling of massive amounts of time and sunk cost. It's just really hard to choose which 2 I was going to discontinue. The Amazon App Store closure was essentially EoS for 2 of my accounts. Because if you think I'm buying 2 new phones or 2 new tablets to be able to continue that lifestyle, I'm just not going to do it. So, in a way, the end kind of came a little bit early to me. It's also weird to think about how long I've been playing this game, especially when I combine it with the original FFBE, which got its EoS last year. I played that game pretty much right up until I started playing War of the Visions. I played both of them for maybe a couple of weeks as I was dipping my toes into War of the Visions, but I very quickly decided that I would rather play War of the Visions, and that I wanted to devote all of my gaming time to just one of these games instead of splitting it up between two. And that's been fun. It has, like, I'm genuinely not feeling a ton of regret for that decision. But it's been like 7 or 8 years. I never really stopped playing War of the Visions for any long period of time while it was running and while I was playing it. I did stop playing FFBE for maybe 6 months to a year at one point. I think like shortly after maybe NeoVisions came out initially, or maybe like right after Heo was released. No, I came back for NeoVisions. I left after Heo, right? But, you know, when you think about it that way, even though I consider myself to be a Final Fantasy fan, a Square Enix fan to a degree, I've played just time-wise, both in like length of continuous time, but both adding up all the minutes together. I've played more FFBE than I have like literally everything else combined in the Square Enix catalog. I dare say I was obsessive about this game, which I guess helped me as a content creator. It also means it's taken up a lot of time. A lot of time that I wouldn't have even spent on what I would sometimes consider even better games, or more complete games. Like, I've spent more time rerunning things in FFBE or War of the Visions than I have replayed Nier Automata or Final Fantasy VII Remake, even though those are probably at the very top of my list of favorite games of all time on a complete and total level. Which is weird. Put a pin in that one too, I guess. We'll get there. Because now we see the end of the game coming. And this probably isn't going to be my last video. I think I'll still do videos for Grand Arena, because that's, other than the cooperative gameplay with my guild, the certain amount of guilt, maybe, that I feel that makes me want to keep my accounts current and good, that keeps me logging in at least every day for guild battle, because I want to be a good team player. All of that will be coming to an end, but the part that I've really enjoyed lately has been Grand Arena, and that's the part that's made me take the time to make videos about it in a era where I didn't really have time to make a lot of content for this game. I could be doing two things I think a lot of the community is doing right now. Either being some degree of upset about EoS, or trying to find a new game to move on to. I know that's tempting, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I mean, I've been pretty loyal to Gumi's games in particular. I have played other gacha-style games made by other companies for some period of time over the last 10 years. And I got hooked on a couple of those a little bit, but I never really stuck around for most of them. Not until FFBE did I really find one that I wanted to invest my time into. And now that that investment is over, I feel like the best thing for me to do is reap the dividends of having more free time. I don't think I'm going to be looking for another game to replace this, is my point. And that's because I recognize that to a certain degree, this game is what you could call a Skinner box. It's not the most direct Skinner box, which is, good for it. But I do want to talk about this concept for a minute, because I think it's actually more relevant and important to other parts of all of our daily lives that maybe we haven't thought as much about. But I do need to explain a couple of things before I talk about how this game functions as a Skinner box. So, first I want to talk about behavioralism. This is a branch of psychology that maybe doesn't necessarily see itself as a branch of psychology. There's a lot of people who think of psychology in general as being some degree of pseudoscientific, because we think of our brains as like this subjective black box. And it's even with, especially before we could scan people's brains and do all this other stuff, there were a group of people who were skeptical of anything that psychologists, psychoanalysts, any of that, Freud, all of them were saying. These people called themselves behavioralists because they believed that behavior was the measurable, quantifiable, scientific point of that. Who cares what's happening in their brain? That's not necessarily important. What they do with what's happening in their brain is what becomes important. I don't necessarily agree with that. And there's also, I think it's functionalism. I'm not sure. It's kind of an outcropping of behavioralism, though, within this field. To where, now that we can scan the brain, we think of it more as a machine. We think of problems in the brain as being solved, as being like deficiencies that we can solve through supplementation. We think that people are depressed because they're deficient in a chemical that we can supplement through pills. I don't think that grabs like the entirety of how our minds work. I think the environment plays a pretty direct role in things like anxiety and depression. But we have this we've been moving away from psychology for a while, to the point where you'll even see mental health facilities are now more frequently being called behavioral health facilities. So, in a way, one thing I'm getting at here is that B.F. Skinner and the behavioralists won. So what's a Skinner box? B.F. Skinner had this experiment with mice. And he theorized that the drives to our basic functions, like eating, reward us with essential chemicals in our brain, which make us happy, essentially. Or make us want to repeat that behavior, make us want to continue eating, etc. So he put rats in a cage with a button that dispensed food. One button press, one food. And they would hit the button pretty consistently because they liked getting food. They were being rewarded by the pleasure centers in their brain for getting food. That chemical reinforcement kept them eating. But, as with any experiment, he played around with the conditions. And he found out that the most stimulating configuration was actually inconsistency. Inconsistency in that the button didn't always work. That the mouse or the rat or whatever would have to press the button multiple times to get a reward, because no individual press would be guaranteed to give them what they wanted. If you're thinking about the gacha system right now, good. You're good at making connections. This encouraged the mice to push the buttons more and more. And what B.F. Skinner began to realize is that while we do get rewarded for eating, we're also perhaps even more rewarded by the pursuit of food. It gives us energy. It gives us motivation.
Watch and learn.
If you dangle the carrot right in front of our nose, we will run very hard and very fast to get it. Even if we have the idea that we may never get the carrot. Again, if you think about pulling right now. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. You can also look at this as the research behind why social media has become what it's become. I think one of the first platforms that I observed this behavior on, that I could say kind of innovated this, is going to be surprising to some of you, but Tumblr. Because Tumblr basically has this infinite scroll of just random posts from all the people you're following. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes what you want, sometimes you have to dig. But there's always this incentive to keep scrolling until you find something good. If everything on the platform were good, there wouldn't really be any incentive to keep scrolling. You just watch some stuff and maybe be satisfied and leave. But since you have to scroll to something you like and observe it, you're getting not only the rewards from finding a cool piece of content, but also the search for that piece of content, which is often more rewarding because you can extend that steady drip of slow pleasure for a while, even though you're not watching anything good. In fact, this incentivizes platforms to things like AI slop, because it's easy, cheap shit filler to put between actually good posts. It helps build the Skinner box nature of these things. It's why Facebook went from showing you the most recent posts from your friends to showing you random posts that you may not be interested in, a random order of posts, just mixing everything up according to the algorithm. But the algorithm is setting you up. The algorithm is putting you in a Skinner box. The algorithm knows what you want, and it knows how to deliver it to you. But it's also, intentionally perhaps, going to put other stuff in the middle of that, be it advertisements, be it stuff that it knows isn't performing well, which in a way is good for discovery, right? You know, this is how they can promote that they're helping discovery, but they're also putting that kind of discovery out to people who they know aren't going to necessarily like it. So this isn't always good for creators necessarily. And over time, it feels like most of the social media platforms have just turned into the most efficient Skinner boxes that we can make for digital content. Personally, that's why I feel like I am more inclined to YouTube, because YouTube still functions that way if you look at your just videos from people you're subscribed to or whatever. Like, it still has that, this is what I want to see, don't fill it with algorithmic bullshit sort of view, the way that Facebook used to. But you have newer platforms like TikTok that is just deeply, deeply incentivizing, both from form factor, just everything about it. Incentivizing you to keep scrolling. Even when you find something you like, it's not going to last for very long. Maybe you watch it a couple times, but you want to keep going. You want to find the next thing. The next thing. The next thing. Suddenly you've lost hours of time. The lights outside of the house are dark. And you wonder where your whole evening went. Now, I think Skinner boxes are insidious and evil. They are a product of industry's attempt to inflict digital addictions onto us. To create essentially digital drugs. I mean, think about it. If there was a drug that you could take that released dopamine and endorphins, I mean, that would be a popular chemical, wouldn't it? There are a lot of drugs that release those two chemicals, as a matter of fact. Typically, the most addictive of them. I'm talking heroin, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, any cocaine, really. This is essentially a digital form of those drugs. And I know that seems weird. Maybe even especially to people who think of the world in more behavioralist terms, but even a person like B.F. Skinner, one of the first and foundational behavioralists, understood this fact. That the search for something we want is often more impactful to our brains on a chemical level than actually finding it. I mean, we do actually have to find something, otherwise the search eventually loses its potency. If you're on a platform and there's no good content, you don't come back. But if you're on a platform and there's some good content, you will search for it for hours. Every day. How does this apply to War of the Visions and, like, gacha in general? Well, I mean, the pulling system is probably the most obvious example. But with these live service games, in a lot of ways, there's always something to do. Also, before they introduced the background repeat system, this game was wickedly difficult to spend all of your available energy in one day. I mean, I don't think they gave us, like, 600 daily energy. I forget when that happened. I think that was after the background repeat system. They would give us, like, the 200. Actually, there's a whole other 100 that's been added to the daily at this point. They just keep giving us more energy. And also, as you go up in rank, as you go up in level, you'll gain the ability to spend more and more pots per day. And without background repeats, this meant you literally had to have your phone running on repeat mode constantly to be able to spend all of your energy. Like, people had to dedicate a phone to this game. Or FFBE. FFBE had the similar issues. Although, I don't think there was, like, an auto-repeat function for the longest time for FFBE. So, like, you couldn't even do that without, like, an auto-clicker or something. So, yeah, especially in that form, like, just the gameplay of this, the search for loot, is kind of its own Skinner box. The fact that even if you've done everything in the game, you only really need wait a week or maybe two for there to be new things to do and to explore. For the fact that even many of the whaliest whales out there haven't actually maxed all of the characters or completed all of the content. I'm almost certainly gonna go to the very end of this game without completing things like legendary reliquaries or selection quests. I mean, I probably could. And in fact, if there isn't much new content for the next couple of months other than Grand Arena, I'll probably sink some time into trying to beat those things, at least for, like, completionist's sake. Or competitive advantage in the case of the legendary reliquaries. I'd really like to max those equipments before the end of the game and really play hard with some people. But all of that stuff is difficult. There's always something that you could do in this game. There's always something that you could build. There's also kind of an element to RPGs that does this, right? Because there's so many different places that you have to go to collect the resources to build up these characters. You have to awaken them and limit break them. Then you have to find the resources to level them up. Then you have to get the JP to actually earn their skills. Then you have to unlock those skills. This is just the process to level 99. There's a whole new process to get you to level 120. Another process that gets you between level 20 and 140. Or level 120 and 121. And then there's this huge repeatable process that's a total suck of resources from going to 120 with base stats to 120 with max stats. Sorry, 140. Whatever. And even if you figured all of that out, There's probably new +6 weapons that you could be upgrading. There's characters with new master abilities that have come out that you need to go unlock. New limit bursts pop up every once in a while. I mean, every couple of weeks I just scroll through my units and see who's got updates and just do them. You know? Sometimes it takes me like an hour, depending on how long it's been, or hours, especially considering I have multiple accounts. There's just always more. And sometimes those upgrades are meaningful, and when they are, it feels really good to see one of those older characters kind of come back to life. But also, a lot of times, those upgrades aren't super meaningful. Or somehow they don't fit into the meta, or somehow they still get countered by a character that is very prevalent and makes them kind of unusable at that moment. And then by the time that character isn't prevalent anymore, whatever upgrade they've got isn't as meaningful. There's a lot of hit and miss within this game in that respect.
Watch and learn.
Now, all of that being said, while I do think that gacha has a certain level of degeneracy to it, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but everything is gambling now. People even gamble on elections at this point. Sports, we even make fake sports, fantasy sports, to gamble on. We'll gamble on gambling. You ever heard of someone shorting a stock? That is gambling on someone else's gambling. There are layers of gambling to shorting a stock. You probably know a content creator, influencer, or celebrity who is now shilling for a gambling site in one way or another. I mean, you do, technically, because you're a War of the Visions fan. You know a couple of them. Because we all kind of are. I mean, I don't like to think of myself as a shill, but... And when I take the moment to talk about these systems, I'm generally not super favorable to them. I don't encourage people to spend money on this game and all that. But I am still encouraging a game which has this addictive process. And it's not really optional. It is optional to pay into it. And if you are capable of being satisfied with what you can get on the free resources, it's a pretty good game to play as a free player. But the temptation is there. You're going to get the chemical rewards from those free pulls, and that's going to make you want more. And I don't mean to disparage anyone, but there's certain people who are like predisposed to be weak to that. To have that as their flaw. There are people who've had previous experiences with gambling that have predisposed them to stuff like this. And as gambling becomes more and more a part of our culture, more people are predisposed to, I don't know, dropping a couple $100 in a gacha to try to get the new character. I really hope that gaming evolves from this, and there are some signs that it probably will. Because I like a lot of the technical, I like the gameplay, I like all of that for this game. I honestly, in some ways, I think it's close to being perfect for a competitive game like this. It's pretty well balanced and nuanced and enjoyable to play. The core gameplay really turns me on. Oh man. But the fact that it's forced into the gacha mold is a bit upsetting. It's always felt like a trade-off. Like, man, I wish I could play this game like it was Mortal Kombat. Basically, all of the characters are already unlocked, or I can just do extra cool things in-game to unlock them or something, instead of needing to daily farm for the resources to have a chance of getting them, or spending money outright to do it as well. And in a way, that's part of what adds to the bittersweetness of EoS. Like, I'm really hoping that we get a lot of resources thrown at us, because denying us those resources is no longer profitable for Gumi because they're not charging us money to play anymore. This is now a free-to-play game for everyone. So why not? I mean, I'd really like to take all the limiters off of this game and just go ham with fully maxed characters, anyone I want. I think the meta would open up a lot that way. It would be a lot less spotty, because it wouldn't be the whole free-to-play community waiting for a specific character and that everybody pulls Shurika or Gilgamesh or whoever. It would be anyone can play anyone, even characters that we thought weren't good or weren't popular initially. I think Pain might be a good example of this, for instance. She's a free character, and I think she's pretty good on certain teams, and I think if more people had built her and used her, she would be valid and viable to a degree that she really isn't now. I mean, you can still play her. Like, if you have Pain, go for it. But you don't see her much in the meta. She would be more prevalent if it wasn't a decision of, okay, well, this character I can get for free, but I'm going to have to spend a lot of resources building her up that it could be spending gambling on Yuna or Riku, who are both objectively, if also not in terms of popularity, better characters. So why would you build Pain? But if everything's free, I mean, you could do it. That's, you know, once again, I kind of wish this was like Mortal Kombat, that there wasn't the RPG elements, that new characters just came out every couple of weeks and we had them. Everyone could use them at their full potential. I mean, sure, again, the way that would determine winners from losers is how you equip them, how you control their AI, all that kind of stuff. I think it would still be a good game, and I really hope that's kind of where we're going. I hope we get a couple of months of that before the game dies, because it's the game I've always wanted to play, and I think the financial incentives, or lack thereof, have lined up to the point where we might be able to play that game. I just don't know the Gumi is willing to do that. Even though there's like nothing necessarily stopping them, except maybe pissing off the JP side, which I think is like their only line of income at this point, so like probably don't want to do that. But you know, it would be really cool of them. There's also some writing on the wall about at least Europe and the way that these games are monetized, the way that these games play out. There's some talk about banning virtual currency from these games to obfuscate how much you spend. So I guess everything would show up for me in USD instead of Visior. Which brings me to an interesting question of how do you make the distinction between paid money and free money? Would there still be free money? I mean, obviously you wouldn't be able to cash it out of the system, but would you be earning like 50 cents for doing the daily login rewards? Would it make a difference to us to see that in our native currency? I mean, psychologically it would. Going back to the scary intersection between us learning things in psychology and companies using them to take our money from us, Disney learned this. I think in the 1990s or early 21st century. They realized that if they gave you like a card or a wristband that was linked to your credit card, instead of having you swipe, and honestly, like, if you want to be more money conscious about how you spend your money, spend cash. Because you have to count it out and like really think about it before you hand it to a cashier or whatever. sometimes it's easier to forget how much we've spent or not really think about it if we just swipe a card. But it becomes even more abstract if we're just tapping our wristband to things to get in and maybe not even thinking about the price that much. What Disney discovered when they did this at their resorts is that people spent a lot more money this way. So there's definitely something psychologically valid to having you spend cash money as opposed to an intellectualization of that cash money like paid Visior. It would certainly make us think about these games a lot differently, and it might, make them less profitable. Make them difficult to run globally. It doesn't, well, actually, there's pretty robust laws around gacha in Japan, but not that, in my opinion, really deal with a lot of the addictive nature of this format. I mean, there's safeguards, there's guardrails, but those guardrails exist to keep this format alive, not to destroy it or make it something better, but just to rein it in a bit. So, maybe because of that, gacha will retreat to Japan more fully. Maybe other companies will follow suit. I mean, big decisions like that could change the nature of those global games. Or we could have global versions of them that just don't include Europe. Which is weird for me, because I think a lot of my experience on the global side has been with European players. Maybe like 40% of the people in my guild that I would talk to or talk to on Discord are from someplace in Europe. I would be missing out on those folks if they were excluded. It would make the audiences different, more separate. I mean, maybe Europe would get its own version of the game that just displayed the currency differently. I don't know. But in a way, I think this is the end of gacha for me. I don't think I'm going to play another gacha after this. And I think that like mobile live service gaming, I think I might avoid that too. Like at this point, I'm excited to have time. I'm excited about my life and where it's going. I want to see that through. And maybe there's some people out there who are still in a little bit of a dark hole that they don't feel that way about their lives. Maybe that's why you're so willing to spend hours a day playing a video game. Maybe it's because the community that you find here is your link to other people. And I get that. But I also want you to consider that that might be a crutch. That maybe moving on from gacha would improve your social life. That would give you more time, more money, more resources to work with. I'm not saying that quitting gacha is going to solve all your problems, but maybe it reduces a little bit of friction in your life in some way. Maybe it makes it easier to go out there and make friends. Maybe you meet people in real life. I mean, if you haven't already picked up on it, I'm not just sour about gachas here. I'm sour about the evolution of most social media here. I mean, and I would say that even though there isn't like a gambling component, which is its own issue, the Skinner boxization of social media is so much more elemental. Like, it feels a little bit weird to call this game a Skinner box, because the best representation of that is the pulling system, the gambling system that encourages you to spend money in the game. That's the best Skinner boxification here. Other than that, it's just a game that never ends, which is its own addiction, I suppose. But I really feel like a lot of modern social media is very Skinner-boxified, and that worries me. Worries me that more people are disconnecting from life. That when I go out into the real, live, wide world, I'm only going to see people staring at screens and not friendly faces smiling back at me. That idea has been worrying me more and more for years as I see it happen around me. But increasingly, those people don't even leave their homes. I don't even see them at all. I don't know. This is all very bittersweet for me. And in a way, I think here I have to acknowledge something that I haven't acknowledged before on this channel for maybe obvious reasons. I'm an FFBE addict. I've been addicted to this stuff for about 8 years. I haven't spent a ton of money on this game, so it hasn't been like a crippling gambling addiction. But playing 4 accounts and making content for them has been a major time suck. It has taken me away from the rest of my life. It is an addiction. And I'm nostalgic for it. I love it still. It's an addiction that I'm not entirely mad at. As weird as that is, you know? It's kind of like how a lot of people feel about smoking weed, right? There's a lot of people out there who tell you that weed isn't addictive, but we've all met, like, true potheads that just cannot function without this stuff. That have to hit a bowl before they go into a public situation because they can't handle people if they aren't high. But for a lot of those people, they say it's a benefit to their life. They like it. It's good that it's here, that it's accessible. And I kind of feel the same way about War of the Visions. I recognize that it's maybe not the best thing for my life and my health, but I enjoy it. So I do it anyways. So in a way, it feels good, refreshing, even freeing, that someone else has made the decision to tell me to stop playing. That it's an absolute. Make sure I could jump in on the JP side. Umber Rays has tutorials on that up at this point, if you'd like. But I don't know. I think I've sunk too much cost in this game to start over. Even if I could or would, I just don't think I want to. I'm done, I guess. Or at least I'm almost done. Once again, the game's still going for a couple of months, and I don't intend to stop playing. Like, by any means. If anything, I might play a bit more for the next couple of months, just because, I mean, hopefully the game... Again, really, I hope they are generous with the resources now, if not ever. Just because I've always felt like that generosity was limited by their desire to make money. And they aren't selling things anymore on this side. So, really, there's no reason why they couldn't just throw stuff at us. I mean, super generous. If anybody remembers First Anniversary and how they were just throwing coins at us that could be traded for shards like hundreds a day or something, yeah, that would be cool. Something like that. Let me build the characters that I've been waiting on because I've been resource jammed and haven't had the money or whatever. Let me build those. There's a lot of things I'm excited for these next 2 months, even though there's apparently not really any new content coming, and we may never see the end of the story. I mean, it seems pretty likely that we're not going to see the end of Season 3. Which is a huge bummer itself, because I think we're all wondering how the Realm Scourge is defeated. I guess maybe we'll watch JP translations of that. Maybe I'll post about that too, keep you guys informed. But yeah, I'm ready to quit. And it's this feeling, if anybody out there smokes cigarettes, and you've ever thought, yeah, I'm ready to quit, but there are 12 cigarettes in that pack, and I am not a wasteful person, so I'll quit when I finish the pack. That is, I think, the feeling that I'm feeling right now. I'll quit when I finish the pack. But unlike a cigarette, I can't go out and buy more War of the Visions. At least not without at least virtually traveling to Japan. So once this is up, it's up for me. I'm done. I'll probably keep this channel around, maybe if, you know, I still want to play the console Final Fantasy VII games, the remake series. I might get around to finally playing Final Fantasy 16. I'll probably post about those things. But again, unless you're particularly interested in Grand Arena, I'm not sure that I'm going to do much more War of the Visions content. Although if there are any topics that you want me to cover before the game ends, let me know in the comments. And I'll think about it. But yeah, I guess I'm more ready for this to be over than I realized. And I don't know how much that is like Amazon quitting, you know? Because it's so hard for me to pick which 2 accounts I would stop playing that maybe in a way it's easier to just quit all 4. You know? Not make the decision at all. But yeah, this has been certainly a bittersweet moment in time in video, and I hope you appreciate it for what it is. I don't mean to lecture or be judgmental about any of this. I know we got into some deeper, darker topics here than I am usually willing to on this channel, but I hope you accept it for what it is, and I hope that in some way, if this is merely a bitter moment for you, if you're just upset, that you find some level of sweetness to this. Some silver lining that makes you, if not happy, at least less upset. There's been, historically, a lot of people who are very willing to get upset quickly within the community of this game. I don't think a lot of them necessarily watch this channel because I've been a lot more moderate in that respect. But if you are truly upset about this, I hope that some part of this video gives you a silver lining so that you can feel a little bit of happiness. That's all I really want for you. Anyways, if you've appreciated this channel, it's definitely a good time for a one-time donation. Just throw me a little bit of change. Hey, I know you're not paying Gumi right now, so hey, send me $10. Send me some pack F money, you know? Coffee is a great place for one-time donations. You could also donate a recurring donation on Patreon. For instance, Umber Rays has been talking about setting up a Patreon. I've been watching him pretty much the whole time I've been playing FFBE, so like 7 or 8 years now. And he's been consistently making content. And I don't know who is giving this guy money, because I haven't really seen him do ads or sponsorships, but he says the channel is monetized. I'm really not sure how. But he is potentially setting up a Patreon. I think I'm going to give this guy a $1 a month for as long as I feel like it, because I haven't given him anything this far. I don't know what he's going to do in the future. I might still watch regardless. But I feel like I kind of owe that guy for putting in the time over the years to help me be a better player. And if you have a similar feeling like that to me, maybe donate to my Patreon until you're like, wow, I need to quit donating to people on Patreon. I'm going to cancel some of these. And don't feel bad about canceling mine, but because if you sent me anything at all, that's great. I appreciate you. So, with all that being said, I also write books. I'm actually writing one right now. A big part of the reason that I haven't been making as much content lately is that I'm really digging in to a trilogy ender. And there were a lot of elements in the earlier books in the trilogy that I wanted to work in that were kind of in my prototype idea, my concept for the universe. And I'm getting them all in there now. Like, it's such a good, fast, well, not always fast-paced, but frantic into the trilogy. It is action and excitement, even more so than the previous ones. It's so good. It's the working title right now is The Digital Divide. But if you want to read the first book in this series, one that is a bit more of a near past cyberpunk style slow burn of a read that focuses on things like loneliness, isolation, and the slow creep of tech into every part of our lives, I have a hardcover version of It Even Happens While We Sleep, first book in the series, available at a special price on Amazon, $15 US. I think it's even a little bit cheaper than the paperback. So go ahead and get the hardback. Better quality, lower price. And if you do that, I really appreciate it, because that's part of my life's work. You know, even more so than this channel. Which, on a certain level, I set up from the beginning to try to find fantasy heads, cyberpunk heads, that kind of thing, that might be interested in my work. I figured the stories are similar enough to, in ways, some of the stories that we hear in these RPGs, one way or another, that maybe there would be crossover interests. So if you're a big Final Fantasy fan, if you love the stories, if you love that kind of thing, especially some of my older works, like maybe starting with Athena's Chosen, which was based on like a tabletop gaming session that I designed. A lot of those works might be more interesting to you. In any case, I mean, supporting my written work is ultimately the goal of this channel. So if you could check out one of those books, maybe even buy one as an ebook if you're a little money conscious, a little short on cash, and send me a nice review. That will help me and my brand out so very much. Also, while there doesn't seem to be a huge point to it, subscribe to the channel for future stuff or just to show me support. But also, like this video. That definitely still counts. Do that. Like the video, at the very least. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Whenever that is.